This is a hell of a first video for me to make on this channel. Complete nobody has a short look at a mutual's music of a genre he is very vaguely familiar with. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy it though, or express the fact that I enjoy it. Now, I did film like minimal stuff featuring my face, but again, it was minimal, mostly on account of like the fact that I was on holiday in the Middle East, which is a whole thing I don't think I'm ready to elaborate on at the moment. So moving on to like the whole point of this channel and why this video is on a separate channel as opposed to my main channel, which you should probably look at if you're stumbling upon this. Something I want to start doing is looking at music from musicians I enjoy listening to on film as part of my never-ending journey to familiarize and become better acquainted with music I would usually not find myself listening to. For context, I consider myself a classical composer in the very vaguest of terms. I'm just someone who, like, the best thing he is able to do is orchestration and orchestral writing compared to the other things. So that's what this channel will be mostly dedicated to. And what a better place to start than like a low-key place, a musician I enjoy listening to, and in fact do so somewhat frequently, I'm afraid at times. To be clear, that's the name of the musician and not a general statement, even though both are somewhat true. IAAT is a musician and composer who specializes in IDM, downtempo, and experimental music, at least according to his Bandcamp tags. I'm pretty inclined to say that those labels do in fact fit his music, as I find myself lost in the music every time I take time out of my day to sit down and listen to it. It's just that interesting, I suppose. I feel like this sort of music is something I can't listen to while doing other things. It's sort of something I need to absorb, kind of like photosynthesis-y. It feels rejuvenating in a weird way. I mean, like, not that I feel like I'm vegetating when I'm listening to it. No. That sort of description can only be reserved for certain other people. He uses Oxy to write music, as far as I know, which is a phone-based digital audio workstation, which I have had some experience using. This came as quite a surprise to me, as the stuff I wrote was hot garbage when compared to this, but that's definitely a skill issue on my end and clear demonstration of his fluency in this particular medium. More talk on that later. Speaking of fluency, IAAT has a very clear grasp on musical storytelling, especially shown through this album. From the concept of the album itself, the track names, to the elements within the music itself, it shows a story which is told in a pretty linear and clear fashion, which I find is very, very immersive. You can really feel that something is being expressed, and that's something I really enjoy as someone who very much sinks balls deep into programmatic music. It's very good stuff. You might find me saying that pretty often in the future. It's kind of hard to find music I wouldn't like, and that might be a flaw, not gonna lie. So, my favorite parts of the album, there are quite a few which I've written notes on in my lovely notes app, if I can find them. 1 second. Okay, here. Overarchingly, I'm not sure if that's a word, I think something I do enjoy specifically in the storytelling elements of the music is how the tone of each track changes according to where in the story we are. At first I had assumed that this album was a sort of musical diary, and I found that I've been somewhat close, with each track somewhat representing a year in the artist's life, yet not always the case. It's not the fact that the tone changes, actually, it's how it's done. The expression is done through very subtle means, changing clarity here, changing texture there, rhythmic changes here, all with an overall purpose of enhancing the individual track's character as the album goes on, something which must have been done with much care given the uniqueness of each track. Wow. English is my first language, guys. I'm so smart. Of course, at first, gauging uniqueness is something I'd found difficult, given the fact that to my unfamiliar ears, much of what was shown sounded the same. However, a practice which I've recently realized is that, much like taste, uniqueness is a case-by-case thing. In order to reliably listen, I had to really listen, and through that is how I've found myself picking out the small differences that added to the experience. Like, think of it this way. Classical works, particularly those of the Romantic era, viewed lives through the lens of, well, Romanticism, viewing experiences more like legends or rumors that exaggerated both turmoil and happiness. This feels more like a realistic yet muddied view of things, hazy as if seen through memory, which is also why I think IDM is a great medium for something like this, a form of modern impressionism, perhaps, a la Debussy or something. And you know what? I could really feel it. I keep coming back to that. This album is really good at making you feel its presence, feeling that it's there, if that makes sense. That the person who wrote this poured quite a lot in with the intention of it feeling that way. Another thing. I don't know if my stomach rumbles are being caught on. Never mind. I'm kind of hungry. Maybe I'll grab a Nature Valley bar later. The tracks appear to be broken into chunks, shown by how some of the titles seem to flow together into sentences, though that may be me looking too much into things. This is something I enjoy though. I don't necessarily want to delve too deep into my interpretation of each title and what the music suggests out of respect, I suppose, but rest assured the fact that I've said that in the first place further speaks on how much I feel this album represents and how much it speaks to me, I suppose. I've never been one just to scrape the surface, as mostly I was always academically obligated to make things as deep and as waffly as possible, thanks to my stupid international A-level examinations, in which, to the board, I totally do not harbor any ill will at all. How is it even possible to get a U in an exam? God, man. I ended up talking with IAAT, known colloquially as Conky, for a little bit and asking some questions which I wanted some answers to. Out of this, I've gotten a few things I'd like to share. So firstly, the organization and concept of the album, that being the concept of growth and growing up, was not actually premeditated. All of the tracks had been written in the moment and later organized into an album, purposefully done in such a way that as the listener continues, the tone of the music slowly changes over its course in a slightly inconsistent manner. The turning point for this vibe, at least according to Conky, the Conquer, happens at track 13, Cannot Speak, prefaced by track 12, I Believed You Were Good, which was formerly dedicated to someone of significant importance to IAAT. Secondly, due to his using of Oxy as his primary DAW, that restricts him to using the sounds already present in the software, as that's one main issue with Oxy. He gets around this through using samples, which allow for each of his tracks to be distinctive and recognizable in their own right, something I might need to start looking at doing some point. I find this really cool, and it definitely helps give his music that unique IAAT flair, if that makes sense. Oh, and apparently the 24th track was a new addition for his coming birthday. The birthday already happened because I took frickin' forever making this video. So maybe as a gift and wish for good health, you should buy the album, or maybe even the entire discography linked below. So before anything, some criticism on this video. Naturally, I'm not good at this, but I'll be trying to improve what I cover and talk about in these as time goes on, if I keep up the motivation for this, that is, and video quality should improve the more I do this stuff. Now, my criticisms on the album. Much of what I have to say on End of the Line is a matter of personal taste, so should really be taken with a grain of salt or perhaps entirely disregarded. While I will be taking into account the intention of the artist and norms of the genre, I'm bound to trip over here and there, so please bear with me for this moment. One thing which I have a slight issue with is the muddiness in the music. Now, while that's entirely a personal taste issue and perhaps a staple of the genre, I don't mean to say that it's not a good thing, but for those listening without a lot of experience in this particular genre, it may be a little jarring. Jarring, not French. However, I feel like this is mostly resolved by the introductory track being very clear, with the following track, Star Blanket, then suddenly hitting the user with this growing wall of resonance. It sort of eases the listener into the experience if they know what to expect. It's bound to polarize listeners and have some turn away while some turn towards the music, so if anything it functions more as a double-edged sword. Essentially a non-issue if one knows what to expect with the genre. Another thing, probably also relating to personal taste, is that I found myself undergoing quite a bit of not ear fatigue per se, more like ear tiredness. When confronted with a sound that's too uniform over too long a time, it often results in me becoming bored. This, however, is entirely because of the type of music I'm used to listening to, which is classical music, jazz, and other genres that generally rely on high energy, like contrast between high energy and lower energy bits and stimulation in their music. And that's about it, really. I don't have many criticisms for this album outside of these two things, which aren't even problems, really. I think that's about it. Wonderful album. You should totally buy it. I think it's very good. So yeah, end of the line. Incredible album. Immersive, emotional, deeply thoughtful. Conky's ability to tell a story through music is quite inspiring, actually. And personally, it's music. I believe how I see it is that it's music you feel and not just listen to. So yeah, with that, support the artist, buy the album or even the entire discography. The links are all below, and yeah, hopefully the next video is better than this one. Yay! Time for a Starkeeper unscripted moment, because I had a thought about the album now while editing the video. I don't know if you can hear the whine of my laptop in the background as it gargles on Da Vinci's balls, but anyway, yeah. I'm editing. This is mid-edit. I noticed at the bottom of the album it said something like, hold on, let me pull it up again. The world was infinite once, now it was nothing but a wooden box. That sort of puts things into a clearer focus based when it comes to how I see the album. Now it's sort of based off of that like small statement, or like, you know, it sounds more like the death of innocence, the death of childhood innocence and childhood naivete and optimism. And when we discussed the turning point, I feel like not only was that a realization of like the cruelty of the world and the destruction of that optimism, it's also like a discovery of death, if that makes sense. Like that no matter what happens in your life, you will end up in a wooden box in the end, you know? Hence the name of the album, End of the Line. I don't know, this might be posting, but you know, it was a cool thing to think about.